All right, guys. Well, let's get to him. You knew he was coming. American literature. There's certain people that are constantly associated with it. You've got people like Edgar Allan Poe, Mark Twain, Emerson, if you're an educated person. But for high schoolers, Robert Frost seems to be the hurdle that many of you find yourself slamming into. And for us, I know that people read, what is it, the most famous one? Two Roads Diverge in a Yellow Wood, The Road Not Taken. Um, that one that a lot of you had in ninth grade that you remember reading and you remember going over in great detail. And that's a good poem. Now, I know a lot of you don't like it, and it's not a bad one, but I'm going to tell you, the ones we're going to read now, I prefer all of these to that one. Okay. So we're going to tackle two today. We're going to tackle Birches. Oops, sorry, Bell. Hey, there it goes. We're going to tackle Birches, which is a new favorite of mine. I used to hate this poem. I even wrote that in my notes, but I like it a lot now. It's one of my favorites by him now. It definitely came up a lot. And then we're going to read Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening. Now, that one is my favorite of his. So you're going to get two of the ones I really love today. And then tomorrow, when I'm back with you guys in person, we'll tackle some more that I really love. I mean, if I didn't like it, we wouldn't learn it. That's for sure. So we're going to start with Birches, though, which is really a weird poem in some ways for a lot of people. So let's look at, again, on page 875, let's look at the background here. He says, Robert Frost spent most of his life in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts, a heavily forested region of the United States. One of the most common trees of this region is the birch, a tall, slender tree with white bark and small, dainty leaves. Despite its graceful trunk, though the birch is by no means delicate, its wood is dense, hardy, and flexible, and its bark is practically waterproof, which made it a popular canoe covering among Native Americans. In this poem, Frost celebrates the birch's resilience and suggests that the human spirit shares this quality. Sorry. So we know ahead of time before we get into this, these birches are supposed to represent human nature. Okay. So you kind of got that laid out for you beforehand, but to be honest with you, it's not much of a spoiler. I think even my least poetic student could pick this up. So let's look at this. So when I see birches bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging on them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice a sunny winter morning after a rain. So he starts off and he's like, I'd like to believe that these trees are bent because kids have been playing on them and having good times. But he realizes that that's not what causes them to bend down and stay down. That would bend a tree briefly, but then when the kid got off, it would pop back up. That's not what's happening here. Instead, he says he knows he's dealing with storms that trees that have withstood great storms. And again, if you see this as human nature, the good times aren't what kind of mold us. It's the tough times. The good times are great, and we'd like to believe that that's what shaped our lives. But in all honesty, rough times are really what shapes most of us. All right, so that's kind of what we're setting up. All right. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-colored as the stir cracks and creases their enamel. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust. Such heaps of broken glass to sweep away. You'd think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are bowed. So long for now, they never right themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. So this, when I first read the poem, this was the section that kind of made me bleh. Although I like it. I like it now that I know what's going on. I had the same situation you guys do. I was asked to read this in high school. The difference being I was just asked to read it on my own and then answer some questions. There was never any kind of discussion. No teacher explained to me what was going on. And while it may seem like it's obvious that the trees are meant to represent human nature, I sure didn't pick it up as a junior in high school. So what we're dealing with here is just, again, a lot of imagery. Frost likes his imagery. He likes to be very formulaic. When I say formulaic here, I don't mean bad. I mean, Sandberg, when we look at his stuff, it kind of was, the stanzas weren't equal. The rhythm wasn't totally, what I would expect. Although it was good, it still was off a little bit. Frost is going to be like by the book type of writing. Okay, so now he's got a lot of imagery of these trees with stuff falling off of it. But again, as you read the imagery, you can apply that if we take some of it and make it more metaphoric for tough times. It works really well. All right. Should have marked where I left off. Okay, there we go. To dry in the sun. But I was going to say, when truth broke in with all of her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them as he went out in to fetch the cows. Some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was when he found himself, summer or winter, and could play alone. One by one, he subdued his father's trees by riding them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them. And not one but hung limp, and not one was left for him to conquer. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon and so not carrying the tree away, clear to the ground. He always kept his poise to the top branches, climbing carefully with the same pains you use to fill a cup up to the brim and even above the brim. Again, we got the description of here what he knows what they were. That was the last section we read. He says, "I'd like to pretend that this is a boy that comes down here and every day gets on these trees, and this is like his one release, and he gets to have fun here just for a brief amount of time." Again, that's the good times versus the ice and the stuff we saw, which was the bad times in the previous section. Um, then he flung outward, feet first, with the swish, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. "So was I once myself a swinger of birches." Now that's a famous line. I once was a swinger of birches. In other words, I once was a kid, and I once had big dreams, and I once wasn't letting the tough times, beat me down and weigh me down. I love that line. It says, "And so I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations, and life is too much like a pathless wood where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig having lashed across it open. I'd like to get away from earth a while and then come back to it and begin over." Now, again, this is kind of the depressing part of this poem, but I absolutely love it. Again, it's this idea that he wishes he could go back. He misses the days when he was a carefree young person, because now he's like one of those trees that's been bent over because of so much that's just been piled on it. And as a 42-year-old adult, that's how I feel a lot of the time. Like, the years and years of trying to build a career and a family and take care of all of the things that life throws at you makes you feel like one of these trees. You're not broken, but you're definitely bent. And I think we all, as adults, if you could have this big clearing full of these trees that were all bent over, that would be us. That's how we generally feel. The line about how he wishes he could get away from the earth for a while and then come back and begin again is a very often quoted section, and it's a really pretty one too. Again, and I get that. The idea of just getting away from all of this briefly. It's one of the great things about being a teacher. It's not by any means the reason I became a teacher, but I enjoy the breaks because I can get like the one we just had, the midwinter break, getting that time to just kind of recollect myself, to get back together, set foot back in a classroom, and say, okay, let's do this, let's get going. Just a little bit of a break always kind of rejuvenates things. So he's talking about like getting away from just the earth and everything here for a little bit of time. And again, a lot of us have that, even at your age. A lot of you like to go to the beach for the weekend and just get away and put everything up. It'd work for you even better if you get rid of your phones during that time, but I know that's impossible for a lot of you. But removing all of that distraction and just going out and enjoying your friends or your family, or even just being by yourself and enjoying a little bit of not humanity for a little bit. And he's not saying I want humanity to be gone. He says I just need a break from it, which we all do. We need a break even from good things. If you got your favorite food, you can only eat it a certain number of days before you're like, okay, I need a break from this. It doesn't mean you quit liking it, but it means you need something to, redirect your flavor palette so you can appreciate the things you have. That's kind of what's going on here. Okay, so it says, "May no fate willfully misunderstand me and half grant what I wish and snatch me away not to return." And he's saying, I don't want to die. I'm not trying to leave the earth. I just want to break from it. Earth's the right place for love. I don't know where it's likely to go better. I'd like to go climbing a birch tree and climb black branches up a snow-white trunk toward heaven till the tree could bear no more, but dipped its top and set me down again. That would be good, both going and coming back. One can do worse than be a swinger of birches. Such a pretty poem. Such a pretty poem. I can't believe I used to hate this poem. I just adore it every time I hear it now. But again, the idea of just getting a little break and going back to being a kid. As an adult, we have so many more freedoms than you do as children or as teenagers, but we have so much more responsibility. And so many things pile up on us and make our lives difficult. It's why your parents come home some nights and they're just angry and you don't understand why. It's not you. It's just that grind, the day-to-day grind. You guys, you have 10 months of being in 11th grade, and then you're going to be seniors, and you'll have 10 months of being a senior, and then you're going to go to college, and each year of college is going to be different. But whenever you finally set foot into the workforce, whether it's after you finish a bachelor's degree or a master's or even a PhD, or maybe you start right out of school, when you hit that moment of continual every day, it starts to get to be that grind. And the idea of being able to take a break and walk away just for a little bit, I mean, it's great. It's why sabbaticals are a thing. There's been days where I've been like, if Mitzi could afford it, it would be good if she could take a travel position and we could all go somewhere with her, and I could work on school, not teaching school, but being in school, or even do some online education with teaching other people online, and then move out to the West Coast just for 6 months and just to be different, and then come back and pick up. Now, it's not easy enough to do that, but the idea makes it really appetizing, to be honest with you. So, and at that ending, one could do worse than be a swinger of Birches. I absolutely love that idea that, you could be a lot worse than a person who dreams of being young again. Every adult does it. We all do. Okay. I hope you liked Birches. Birches is a new favorite of mine. I'm going to, forever. I've totally I didn't ever hate Robert Frost, but I definitely wasn't he wasn't on my top 10. He definitely is now, and a lot of it comes because of this poem and getting to spend some time. I think a lot of it's because of time and context. Now that I'm older, I get it, and I think that makes a difference. All right, let's look at the other poem I was going to tackle for today. This is called Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and I still love this one. Very first time I read this one, I loved it. Now, I believe, and let me check real quick, I believe I gave you the analysis video for this one. Yeah, it's there. It says Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost, and then it's got a line and then it says analysis. Okay, so this is a really good analysis of it. The girl does, I think it's a girl that did this one. She's amazing. I disagree with a couple of things she says, but it doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean that we both can't be right. It doesn't mean that she's not right. But let's look at this, and then I'm going to give you a really simple kind of, very, very simple, to be honest with you, analysis of this. If you want to really see how to break down a poem, though, go watch that video. It really gives you a lot more detail than what I'm going to provide. So this is a pretty short poem. It's, 4 stanzas? It's 4 quatrains because you got 4 lines in each, so very common writing format. All right, so let's do the first one. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping there to watch his woods fill up with snow. So we've got, it looks like an AABA rhyme scheme, which is odd, but it fits and the rhythm's perfect. So you got an image of this guy who's traveling and he stops by these woods that are covered in snow and he just sits to look at them and watch the snow fall. Now, for some of you that hate the cold, that would seem ridiculous. For people like me who love it, that sounds heavenly. I mean, some of you came in here the other day. I had a YouTube channel. It was 8 hours playing of just somebody's porch with a fire in the middle of it and snow falling behind it. It was seriously 8 hours of that. No music, nothing, just that. And I can't think of anything more peaceful. All right. So I love that first stanza. It says, my little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So he's like, the horse is trying to pull him away and say, hey, let's keep going. We've got things to do. And it's cold. And why are we stopping here? But the guy's basically indicating that he stopped there. And he doesn't say why. He's just like, this is what I want to stop here. Whether the horse likes it or not, we're stopping. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. This horse is trying his best to say, hey, man, let's keep going. Why are we stopped? It doesn't fit. And then, up till now, I mean, besides the fact that the peaceful snow to the image I like, but, this is the part that I loved. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go before I sleep. Now, this is where me and the analyst in that video are going to disagree. She brings this up and says that it's a common interpretation, which I feel like is the right interpretation, that there's a discussion of suicide almost here in this last stanza. The idea that, he just thinks, the horse is trying to pull him away. Like, you don't want to be here. It's almost like he's uncomfortable. And it's like the guy indicates the woods are lovely, dark, and deep. Again, that seems like death in some ways. Death is lovely? No, but if you're in pain and miserable, I can see why that might be a thought. Dark and deep. But then he points out, but he has to move on. He says, I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. The term I sleep there to me feels like, again, death. Now, the analyst is going to point out that it's not about that, and that's fine. you don't have to make that interpretation at all that I am. I think that's what's going on. The image here of sitting there and watching snow pile up on this forest and this emptiness, and the fact that the horse that you have, the only other living thing with you right now, is trying to pull you away from this while you're attracted to this, and you're sitting there and watching it as it gets darker. I mean, getting dark is another image that would be associated with death. But then thinking about these woods and thinking about the situation this person finds themselves in, but they realize that this is not the way out for them, that they've got promises to keep and many more things to do before they can sleep. And again, going along with Birches, this is this idea that I think that, again, as an adult, this means more to me, because I'm not going to lie to you guys, there's not been times, there's not been days where I've been like, it's just too hard, this is not what I want to keep doing. Why am I putting up with this? Well, why, guys that know I have health problems. I mean, there's been days where I've been like, good. I mean, that means I'm not going to have to deal with fill in the blank with whatever's frustrating me that day again. But the ending of that is what's so powerful, that I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. I'm not a person that's afraid of death. I've never have been. I'm not a person who, panics over that sort of thing. When my day comes, I'm going to go willingly, because I know that there's big things waiting for me afterwards. And I'm excited about that. And I feel like I've done a lot of what I wanted to do while I was on this planet. That doesn't mean I'm rushing out the door. Okay. And those last 3 lines, this to me sums up the way I feel so much. Like, this being able to rest finally and not stress about paying the bills and not stress about making sure I've got my lessons together and making sure that what am I going to do about this kid who's failing my test, and what am I going to do about my own kid who can't seem to pass class. Being able to put all that away and just rest is really relaxing to think about sometimes. But the fact is, again, is that that's not, I want to go to that when it's time, and it's not time. So but I have miles to go before I sleep is a really key element there. And that's why he repeats it twice, because there's no other repetition really in the poem. So why repeat that twice? Because that's the key that you're supposed to take away. All right. So tomorrow when you're back with me, and I'm assuming I'm going to be ready and be back. If not, we'll be back on video, and I'm going to have to film those at the house. But we're going to look at some more of Robert Frost's poems, 3 of them in particular. Out, which is a reference to the play Macbeth, which I'll teach you as a senior. Acquainted with the Night, which is another one that I just love the imagery in. And then Mending Wall, which is another really famous one that a lot of people talk about. I don't particularly, that's my least favorite of this group, but I still like it, understand. So that's what we're going to be looking forward to. I hope this was better for you than The Road Not Taken. I hope you realize there's a lot of good stuff that Robert Frost does, and they're really powerful. And I love the imagery of the Northeast, because you guys know I'm a winter person, 100%. So, all right, guys. Well, that's about 17, much longer than the Sandberg poems, I realize. But there's so much more to talk about here. There really is. I mean, you could watch that analyst video, how much she breaks down every line of that poem we just read. There's so much depth to Robert Frost. So, all right, guys. Well, that's going to end it for this. I hope you guys have had an enjoyable few days without Mr. Morris, but I hope you're looking forward to seeing me again, because I'm really looking forward to seeing you. So, guys, have a wonderful afternoon and evening.